Okay, you've got your new Hikvision Hybrid ColorVU. There's so much this camera can do, but what's the best way to optimize its performance? Let's dive into the menus and take a look. So let's just jump into the settings. One of the very first things that you need to do, and it happened to me this morning, is to check that we have the current firmware. I have logged into my camera. This is the model number here, and here is the firmware. If I pop over to the Hikvision site and put in the same model number that we have here, you will see that this camera is not running the latest firmware. 5.7.13 is what I'm running. The latest one is 5.7.17. So rather than mess around with my camera, I thought I'll do one of the other cameras on the network, and lucky I did, because when we look at the new camera, we can see that the interface has completely changed. Although the settings and everything like that are going to be exactly the same, the interface has changed. So very, very good idea to upgrade the firmware, which is what I'm about to do on this particular camera, and I will return back to you in a moment. Okay, I've updated the firmware on my camera. I am about to log in. You can see the new interface looks a little more modern now. I've opened up two versions here because we're going to run them side by side. It's the same web address on your network for the camera on both of these. I'll just log in. And the reason I open up two is so that we can see side by side. One will be the live view, which you can see here, and the other one will be the configuration. So as we make changes, we can sort of see what's going on over here. Alright, with regard to the live view, it's set to show the substream by default. So we want to change this down here to the mainstream so we can get an accurate picture quality. That's how it's going to be recording. You can also see it sort of stretched out here. So if we click down onto this little button here, we can change the ratio to 16.9, which is exactly how it's going to be recording. Now with regard to these firmware updates, I've just updated mine. It's not recommended that you do that yourself. You can easily render the camera unusable, so we would suggest that you use a licensed security technician to do any upgrades to your system. You can book a service call with us directly, but anyone in your local area can do it for you. We just suggest that you don't do it yourself, even though I've showed you where to get it from, so you can do so at your own risk. I've actually defaulted this camera so that all of the settings should be how yours are when it's delivered to you. So you can see this new interface, which I'm still trying to get my head around, is a lot different to the old one. Obviously it starts with live view, you've got your VCO, which is all your events and what have you. But the main things we're going to change right now are some simple configurations for your new smart hybrid camera. First things first, we've jumped into configuration, we've gone into system. We go into system settings, we're verifying that that is in fact the latest firmware, which when we jump back to the website here, we can now see that if I go down to the download center, that it now matches. Okay, so we have the current version. If yours doesn't look like this, you need this, otherwise it's going to be tough for you to follow along, even though, as I said before, the settings are the same. So you don't necessarily have to do the firmware upgrade, you can just change the settings and do the firmware upgrade at some time in the future. Back to the live view. So by default, we can see that we have a very, very nice image. It's pitch black outside. The sun hasn't come up. There's a little bit of ambient light in the background, and you can see by default, the hybrid renders a very, very nice image without you having to change much at all. Having said that, we're going to go through these parameters, just the ones that I think you need to change. I'm not going to go through every single menu. It would be an extremely long and probably boring video. So let's just cut to the chase and do the bits that I think you need to change. First things first, we go to our video and audio setting. One thing that's interesting about this camera is that it obviously has different resolutions, and in previous cameras it would just change the resolution, i.e. the number of pixels in the image, if you change the resolution. With this camera, even if I drop it down to say a 6 meg resolution and hit save, if you look at this image over here, see what it's just done? It's actually cropped the image. We don't want to do that. If you want to get the full field of view, which is just over 100 degrees, I believe, you must change this to the full resolution and hit save. And now we can see we get the full field of view. it crops it on anything other than the 8 megapixel resolution. The bitrate type in the mainstream, I like to keep this as constant. We're going to change the video frame rate to about 15, and the max bitrate, we're going to change that to 6144. And to conserve space on our hard drive, we're going to change the video encoding to H.265. Now with the iframe interval, we normally double whatever the frame rate is for the mainstream. So we're going to change this now to 30 and hit save. One thing I didn't change is the video stream. Now if you want to record the audio, because it's got the inbuilt microphone, you must change this as well to video and audio stream. Then it will record the footage and the sounds from the microphone as well. So hit save on that. With regard to that bitrate being constant, I like to do that in the mainstream. It just maintains the amount that the image refreshes and saves that data to the hard drive. It's handy because later on, when we start going to different modes like the smart mode, this thing's going to change from IR over to color, and we just want it to do it smoothly and consistently. We don't want it ramping up as events take place. We want to also reduce the amount of ghosting and what have you in the image, and we found that this is the best way to achieve that. Having said that, in the substream, it is less important. Again, we want to record the video and the audio. I'm going to change, for the clipping reason I mentioned before, the ratio here. See the resolution? We'll just go for 640 by 480. This time we're going to leave it as variable, and this is just for the substream. And I'm going to drop this frame rate back down to 15. And with substreams, we like to actually triple the iframe rate. So we're going to change this one to 45, and we're going to hit save. Audio, there's nothing to change in here. We can just leave that as it is. Next, we move on to the image settings. All right, so bits you need to change. Exposure time. Here, we're going to change this to 1/100th. As I said, that's how long the aperture is open. The higher the number, the lower the time that it is open, so the less light that hits the image sensor. So you can sort of see that this has reduced this a little bit. Okay, we're still getting nice colors, but the benefit of doing this is that you reduce the ghosting, which is where if you walk through the field of view, it's not going to show you multiple versions of someone walking through. You're just going to get a nice clean image of them moving. Go into day-night switch. Now you can see that, as I said, by default it's set to white supplement light. Now one of the main reasons people buy this particular camera is because of the smart hybrid light. So in order to take advantage of that, we can change this here to smart. Now what we'll see in this image here now is it's flicked over to the black and white image. So this is exactly how I described one of its main benefits, is because when that white light is on, it's annoying, or possibly could be annoying people who are affected by that white light constantly shining at them. When it's at this mode, that camera virtually becomes invisible. It's using IR for the detection, and it'll flick over to the color mode once it picks up something in this field of view. So this is the best of both worlds, and the primary reason why people are going to use this particular camera. So if you are someone that wants to capture number plates, we can see that in this particular case, as is the case with virtually every infrared camera, the IR light actually blows out the number plate, making it unreadable. If we zoom in, you'll see what I'm talking about here. You can see that we can't really make out the numbers. Now, by default, we can see that the IR settings are set to 50. Now, you can play around with these. We can change this to manual, and we can drop this down, say down to 14, and now you can see that I can actually read the number plate there. So play around with that, it just depends. I've gone all the way down to 3, and I can still read the number plate. You can see now I'm not getting any bounce back out of that, but you're going to have to just play around with that. The interesting thing here is that when I set this back to auto, it doesn't appear to change anything as far as that. This seems to be like a maximum setting that it'll go to, even though you've got it in the auto level. Changing the white light doesn't change anything with regard to this, because we're in the smart mode feature. So again, both of these light brightness controls you can play around with based upon your camera's field of view, because everyone's will be a little different. But yeah, nice to be able to get a number plate in the middle of the night, and it is around about 12 to 13 meters away. As far as backlight is concerned, I don't touch any of this. But wide dynamic range is something some people put on if you've got a very dark area in your field of view and it is very bright in the rear of the image. Then you might use wide dynamic range and it'll sort of give you an overall, it'll brighten the dark area and darken the other one to give them an even look. But I don't like that look, and in particular at night time it's not fantastic. If you are someone that is going to use wide dynamic range, I would suggest that you use the auto feature. What auto does is, and the reason this didn't change at all, is if it's in this nighttime mode, it actually turns the wide dynamic range off rather than putting it on all the time. Because if I change this now to on, you can see, look what it's done to my image. I can still read it, I can still see everything. If I turn the thing off, some people might like that look, but during the day, it looks a bit weird to me. So I tend to turn it off, but at the very least, if you're going to have it on, put it on to auto. Okay, nothing in white balance, nothing in image enhancement, and nothing in video adjustment. We can see that the camera name here is camera 1. You might want to change that. So if you go to your OSD settings, we can make a change to the actual camera name. So by default, it's set at camera 1. You might want to change that to driveway, backyard, or something more relevant to you. In my case, we've got a lot of cameras here at Security Perth. So I'm going to call this one 8 megapixel ColorVU hybrid. And the other thing I'm going to change, because we're in Australia, is the date format. We're going to put that to day, day, month, month, year, year. We hit save on that. See, it instantly changes it up here and instantly changes the name down here. So the next bit we're going to go to is down to event. So in here you have your motion detection settings. I tend not to use the motion detection settings. I can see one of our technicians arriving here now. The new GUI has got your intrusion zone, which is what I like to use, and that is actually set up in the VCA. In this case, we're going to go to Smart Event, hit Next. We're going to go to Smart Event again. And here we find our intrusion detection, line crossing, etc. Alright, so let's set up our intrusion zone. So first thing we're going to do is add a rule. Okay, so rule 1, I'm going to draw the area first. I'm going to draw the minimum size. Some people draw squares like this, but that could potentially still pick up little animals and what have you, and most of them on 4 legs are not going to be this shape. So we tend to do a small rectangle like that for our minimum size, and then for our maximum size, you can see we've got a vehicle there. But obviously if something's closer in the field of view, it could be quite a bit bigger. So if I want to capture things that are in that field of view, I'm going to need to make this a little bit bigger. Again, we want a rectangle, but I'm going to do around about that size so I can pick up something in the foreground or the background. Now we're going to do our detection area. So in this case, we click on here. And what's good about Hikvision, you can choose your area very, very easily. And it doesn't have to just be a box. Okay, so I've clicked on here and you can see I'm going all the way around, and we've got it on our final one. When I get all of my areas set here, I'm going to right click, and we can see that that now goes red, and that shows me the detection area. You can see here the detection target is human, and I also want to pick up vehicles. You may be curious why I didn't put anything in here where that car is, and that's because with Hikvision and a lot of other cameras that we've tested from other manufacturers, when you leave something like a vehicle in an area, you've ticked vehicle, and this area gets a light source or something, you know, maybe a car drives past and its headlights flash across here, the camera is going to look at the detection targets to see if any of those are in its field of view. And if I left my car parked here, so you might have one in your driveway, and if you leave a car in your driveway and tick vehicle and have it within the detection zone, and your neighbour, for example, we had an instance where a neighbour put on their light, it shone into their customer's field of view, it was triggering the camera even though there was nobody there, but the camera was seeing a vehicle in the detection area. So as far as the camera was concerned, yep, there's a vehicle. You've indicated you want us to notify you or take action when there's a vehicle. So lo and behold, it would do it. So in this case, I've excluded the area that I know everyone, all my staff and what have you, are going to park. Okay, so it's only if someone moves into this area, I've got human and vehicle. Now, if I had no choice and I wanted to pick up that area because maybe I wanted to see if someone was breaking into that car, I would extend the range. See here, I can extend it like this. I still don't want to pick up the road, so I'm going to exclude that. What I would do in this case is I would exclude vehicles, okay, and I would hit save. Now, the threshold is how long is something within this area. So to make a detection, it says 5 seconds here. I normally bring that down to 2 or 3 seconds. And I bring the sensitivity up to about 65. And target validity, I go to highest and hit save. That dramatically reduces the amount of false alarms. Now, schoolboy error, got to check the enable box here. So you can do all your parameters. If you forget to do that, this smart event is not going to work for you. That's as far as I normally go with this camera. I set up that intrusion zone. The other thing that you can do, which is interesting here, let's have a look in arming. Good. So it's got the linkage now is in this arming schedule. So by default, arming schedule is set to the whole time. Okay, I can't see a reason why you'd want to change that. So just leave that as it's set. You've now got the option of doing the active deterrence features that we've talked about. So we've got an audio linkage, and that I'll show you where you set that up in a second. And you've also got the alarm flashing light. Good thing about setting up smart events with this is that you've got the active deterrence features. This is like the live guard when you arm it on your phone. These things are what's going to happen. Okay, so the Notify Surveillance Center is going to make a recording on your NVR, or if this is a standalone system, just a camera without an NVR, that is going to mean that it's going to send the event through to your smartphone. So make sure that's always enabled either way. As far as the flashing alarm and audios, it's just going to trigger, and then obviously when the person is detected, because you've got those accurate analytics, it's now going to trigger an audio message or the flashing alarm. Now we hit save on that. Another event that you can use on this camera is line crossing. If we add a rule to this, again, you want to set up your minimum and maximum. So I do the rectangle again for the minimum, the larger rectangle for the maximum. And then when we do our actual line itself, you can see that we've got these little A's and B's. Now, as it stands, the way it would go, like if I wanted to pick up, I'm just going to move that out of the way. I could draw my line across the car park here. And you can see that the technician has just walked past it. Now, this is going to pick up in both directions, but let's just say it's your front door. You don't need to know when people leave, but you just want to know when people come to your front door. So you might change this direction to B to A, okay? So you can see anyone moving in this direction from right to left is going to be picked up, but anyone walking out, if it's your front door, is not going to do anything. So that's how you use the detection arrows. And in this case, we're going to go human. Let's go vehicle as well. We'll do the highest again. And as far as sensitivity, we can set that somewhere in the middle at about 50. Hit save on that. And again, finally, once you've set up all your parameters, you can hit enable. You must hit save again. If we go into arming schedule, we've got the choice there to put on the audio linkage, the flashing alarm, etc. You trigger outputs. If it's got a memory card in, this will record it onto the local storage of the camera. I'm not going to go through each one of these events, but those are the two most common ones. Now, Alright, so if we go into the audible alarm output settings here, we can see that by default it's set as siren. At my front door, I just like to welcome people, but just let them know that the area is under surveillance. I've had a couple of, let's say, dodgy looking people that have come to my door. They've been welcomed by that message and the flashing light, and they seem to have done an about face and left. So that in itself is a very good reason To set that, it does say welcome, so anyone legitimate coming to your front door, it's not too bad for them to hear that message. There's obviously some other places, you know, it's a restricted area, etc. But I like this one in particular for front doors. You can in fact set your own. Okay, so there's custom audio here that you can upload and make it whatever you want. We don't need it to play 5 times, so I would just set that to just play once, and we can control the volume level. You can also determine how and when you want that to occur. So if it was an office, you wouldn't want this playing constantly. You may only want it to occur at certain times. So in this case, if we want to redo this, we can click on the erase. This is the new interface, so it's a nice way of doing it. And it just allows us to block out the area that we don't want this to occur. Okay, so I've accidentally clicked on this box. I'm going to check back on the drawer and fill that one back in. But it's as easy as that. If I want to change this to 8 o'clock, just go across to there, drop it down. Very, very easy to do, and hit save. Right, so that warning sound now would only play up to 8 o'clock in the morning and from 6 o'clock at night. When it comes to the flashing light, I like to use the normally on feature, and I normally put that on for about 20 seconds. Again, this is to notify somebody that they have been picked up by the camera. Very useful if you're not going to use the audible, and what we've noticed is that because this flashes and makes the camera go a lot brighter, that typically, especially from the IR state, not so much on this hybrid camera, because the hybrid camera is in the IR state to begin with, so that the camera is not visible, and as soon as it picks up and flicks over to color, it puts the white light on anyway. So in this particular camera, this is sort of less important, but just so you know how to do it, this is the area that you've got to go to. It's in general settings, flashing. You can choose how long it stays on for and whether or not it's a high frequency, low or medium frequency strobe, or it just stays on all the time. So I'm going to just leave it like that and hit save. If you are using an NVR, there's nothing else that you need to change. One thing I didn't touch on was the time settings. If this has got access to the internet, you can do the NTP time sync. If you haven't, or it's just a standalone camera, you can do a manual time sync where it'll take the camera sync with computer. So I'll click on that. That's just going to line up with whatever my time is right here. But as I say, if I've got access to the internet, I can click on here. We can test to make sure that it's got a connection to the internet. And the DNS is not configured, so yeah, this wouldn't work in this particular case. I'll just go over to network settings. I can see down here, preferred DNS server, there's nothing listed. Now if you want to be on the safe side, you can just put the Google address in here. And then as a backup, you could put the gateway, which I've set up here. Hit save, and then if I go back to system settings, go back into time settings now. We've set that to Perth. Let's go NTP and let's go test now. And testing succeeded. Yeah, so I'll just hit save and we are good to go. Alright, those are the most common settings that you need to change. I know I've rambled on a bit, but I've given you explanations to why I'm doing this. If you just follow those instructions, you can have your camera set up in a couple of minutes. Okay, there's not that much to change, and by default it works straight out of the box anyway. If you need any further assistance, reach out to us here at Security Perth or Security Queensland. We're happy to help you over the phone with your camera. We've obviously got licensed security technicians that can come out and do this for you in person if you're not comfortable with things like firmware upgrades, etc. Until next time, I'll see you then.